We don't have to wait long. The dealer shows up with two women we have told him we want to buy.
How do you do?
Not mine, that's mine.
How do you do?
Fine. What is the name of this one?
This is Margaret, and this is Mary. 300 pounds, 300 pounds. Can you see? Fine.
The experiment has succeeded. We set our slaves free, seek a new master, if they are to survive. You don't have to hide yourself in a forest to buy a slave. You can buy one on the outskirts of a large city as well. This is an African city at night. One gigantic flophouse. A huge bed of misery and desperation. We have been told of a house that sells its merchandise to the biggest traders in Eastern Africa. Our informant leads us there through narrow streets and back alleys. Then we watch a girl being bargained for by a rich merchant passing through town. This is indeed a trap, but hardly a tourist trap. We are in the neighborhood of the oasis of Ahila, on the edge of an airfield abandoned after the war. An old plane lands, and simultaneously a truck emerges from the darkness. The plane takes off at dawn. Do the pilots know what cargo they are flying and where these children end up? We find our answer. Great opportunity for the slave traders lies in the pilgrimage to Mecca. Mecca is the heart of Islam, and Islam is the third religion in the world. Show me one single Muslim country where slavery is not practiced, Prince Faisal of Saudi Arabia once said to a journalist.
We are sorry to have to drag the United Nations into it again, but there is something we must add. We have the evidence of this British officer, Lieutenant Marlon Steele of the 37th Military Police District of Maridi. On the morning of May the 6th, 1963, 5 Kivu slave traders were arrested. They are guilty of having used these instruments of torture on 15 Bakudo children so as to reduce them to such a pitiful physical condition as to arouse the generosity of the passers-by. We are sorry and ashamed to have to insist on showing this terrible document. This young British officer who is collecting evidence is sorry and ashamed too, but it is his duty. Just as it is our duty and that of the whole civilized world, or the world that calls itself civilized and feels smugly at peace with its conscience and with God, to consider this an accusation, to stop this cruelty.
The poor neighbourhood of Mauritania's capital, Nouakchott. Habi and her son don't have much, but even so, it's a lot more than they used to have when Habi was a slave to an Arab family. 2 years ago, an organisation campaigning against slavery rescued her from her former masters.
In the beginning, it was very difficult for me. It was very difficult to leave my masters because I thought there weren't any other options. I just couldn't imagine I'd be able to live without them.
Biram Ould Abaid works for the NGO in question, SOS Slaves. He says it's freed more than 50 slaves over the past 2 years, but that there are thousands more still out there. The slaves are mainly from the ethnic community known as the Haratine, a group oppressed for 800 years in the region, so long that slaves too often simply accept their fate as an inferior caste.
When you talk about slaves in Mauritania, you're talking about people who were born slaves. That means who work with no salary, who have no rights with their children, no right to education, and if it's a woman, she must sleep with her masters at their will.
Messaoud Ould Bouker is ethnically a Haratine. He's a candidate for the presidential election and has risen to be president of the National Assembly, a first for his community. He's frustrated about the lack of progress.
Just because I'm president of the National Assembly doesn't mean that the problems of my community are therefore resolved, or that there's even been any evolution. On the contrary, we're doing everything for the concrete cases of slavery which are underway. People can't accept the fact that the government is treating these cases as slavery.
Slavery was officially outlawed in Mauritania in 1981, but it only became a crime to own slaves in 2007. Theoretically, the offence holds heavy punishment, but in reality, nobody has so far been sentenced. Habi and her son might have been spared from their lives as slaves, but thousands of others haven't yet been so lucky.
These ruins are all that's now left of the village of Niamlel in southern Sudan. Like many predominantly Christian villages in this area, it's been looted by Sudanese Arab militias from the Muslim north. They carry out regular raids on the Dinka tribespeople. They're supposedly freelance robbers, but the village is on the front line of the war between north and south. The Muslim government appears to turn a blind eye. This family says they've been left with nothing after the Arabs carried off goats and cattle and then burned the village. Up to 300 villagers were killed, mostly men. Then the women and children were rounded up. The Arabs captured Abuk Maru, along with dozens of others. She believes they intended to sell her in the north as a slave, but let her go when they discovered she was blind. They still have her 2 children. Akai Barjuk was captured in the same raid along with her 3 children. She was rescued by her husband, who undertook the dangerous journey to the north, where he found his whole family had been sold into slavery. Apin Akot paid around £100 a head for his family's freedom. It took him months to earn the money, but few people managed to make the journey north. So 4 hours walk away from the village, a new market has sprung up. Arab traders have realized that they can sell escaped slaves back to their families for 5 times the price in the north. At this market, former slaves change hands for £500, a few Kalashnikovs, or 5 cows a head. A group of 22 people wait to be sold. To get here, they've escaped from their owners and been rounded up by the Arab traders, who bring them back to the south. Until money changes hands, they won't be free.
600,000 was part.
22.
The practice has disturbed some Arab merchants. But controversially, a Western aid agency has got involved.
Freedom, sweet.
It is literally freedom for 20 people.
These children are being bought back with money supplied by Christian Solidarity International. Here, it's handing over £10,000 to a slave trader.
نشتغل نعيش بس ناكل ونشرب.
ولا بتاع برك.
ده؟
لا ده. التعليم لسه ما جرى.
أنا بقول القروش ده ما لي أنا براي.
The charity made a clandestine visit.